The garage door shudders as it ascends, its familiar groan the only sound in the quiet morning. For a single hopeful second, Richard imagines the space he needs, the clean workbench, the neatly hung tools, the clear path to the lawnmower. But the light doesn't reveal a workshop. It illuminates a fortress of memories. Stacks of boxes from a move 15 years ago lean like tired soldiers. His late wife's potting bench is barely visible, buried under a landslide of yellowed newspapers and forgotten projects. Each object screams a silent demand, a decision to be made, a past to be sorted. The wave of visual noise is overwhelming, a physical weight pressing on his chest. It's too much. The sheer volume of accumulated life feels impossible to confront today. With a sigh that carries the weight of 5 years of avoidance, he presses the button. The door descends, shutting out the chaos and locking in the familiar, quiet paralysis for another day. But this is more than just a messy garage. It's a quiet, undeclared war for his independence. Every time his children visit, he sees the flicker of concern in their eyes as they glance towards that door. Their gentle questions, "Do you need help with anything, Dad?" feel less like offers and more like assessments. He, a retired engineer who built systems and solved complex problems, now feels cornered by his own history. The space that once represented his competence and purpose, filled with tools that shaped his world, now broadcasts a single, terrifying message. He can't manage. The real threat isn't the pile of old paint cans or the duplicate wrenches. It's the future this chaos implies. It's the slow, creeping surrender to a home that is no longer his ally, but an obstacle course that silently erodes his autonomy and puts his freedom at risk. This isn't just about reclaiming space. It's about preventing his own home from testifying against him. Behind the closed door, the garage lives a second life inside Richard's mind. It's not the physical objects that haunt him during his quiet morning coffee. It's the inventory of obligations they represent. He thinks of the box of his wife's gardening books and the piercing guilt that the thought of donating them brings. It feels less like decluttering and more like an act of erasure, a final, deliberate closing of a chapter he's chosen to keep open. This is why the task remains impossible. For him, a man of logic and systems, this problem defies all reasonable inputs. Every item is tethered to a non-negotiable emotional value. To sort the garage is to put a price on his own history, to weigh a memory against a few square feet of concrete floor. The decision fatigue is a suffocating blanket. He is an engineer paralyzed not by a complex schematic, but by the simple, devastating question: what does it say about me if I let this go? This internal battle sharpens into a quiet dread whenever he anticipates a visit from his children. He finds himself rehearsing justifications, preparing a defense for a trial that hasn't been scheduled but feels inevitable. In his mind, their loving glances are turning into inspections, their offers of help translating into assessments of his competence. He fears the day they stop seeing a beloved father and start seeing a problem to be managed. That garage, once the domain of his self-reliance, now feels like Exhibit A in a case against his own autonomy. The real fear isn't that he'll trip over a cord. It's that his children will use that cord as evidence that he is no longer safe alone. Every stack of newspapers, every unused tool has become a silent witness testifying against his fitness to govern his own life, pushing him closer to the one thing he fears most, becoming a burden. The physical state of the garage has become a perfect mirror for his internal world. The space is not just cluttered, it is stagnant, a landscape of deferred decisions. Just as the pathways in the garage are blocked, so are the pathways in his mind for what comes next. His secret desire to restart a hobby, to feel the simple purpose in his hands again, is choked by the sheer volume of the past. There is no clear bench on which to start a new project, because it's buried under the artifacts of finished ones. He's slowly realizing that the house has ceased to be a home that supports his present and has become a museum dedicated to his past. The chaos is no longer just a backdrop. It is an active force, a constant, low-grade hum of overwhelm that consumes his mental energy and leaves no room for a future to take root. Reclaiming the space is no longer about organization. It's about clearing his own mind. The turning point arrives not with a grand epiphany, but with the sharp, undignified snag of an old electrical cord. He was searching for a simple pair of pliers, a 2-minute task. As he navigated the familiar, narrow canyon between a wall of old paint cans and his son's forgotten bicycle, his foot caught. He pitched forward, catching himself against a dusty workbench, his heart hammering against his ribs. He wasn't injured, but in that split second of lost balance, a profound and searing anger eclipsed the fog of his daily overwhelm. This wasn't a gentle reminder of his age. It was a declaration of war from his own environment. The space was no longer a passive archive of his past. It had become an active physical threat. For the first time in years, the engineer in him resurfaced, not with sadness, but with a cold, analytical fury. He was living in a failed system of his own design, a hazardous environment where a simple task could lead to a catastrophic failure. The problem was no longer emotional, it was structural. Standing there, his breath steadying, The question echoed in the sudden silence of the garage, sharp and unavoidable. If I do not fix this now, when? The answer was a chilling vision of the future, a slow surrender, a life increasingly confined by the very walls meant to protect him, ending with the quiet humiliation of his children making decisions for him. The fear was real, but something else was realer. A spark of his former self, the problem solver who stared down complex schematics. He realized he had been using the wrong tool for the job, trying to untangle an emotional knot when what he needed was a blueprint. The objective wasn't to mourn the past, but to secure the future. He would not clean or organize. He would execute a strategic plan. He would create a systematic 10-point audit, an independence audit, to identify and neutralize every element that compromised his safety and freedom. This was no longer a chore. It was a mission to reclaim his home, and with it, the authority to write his own next chapter. His mission begins not with a sentimental journey, but with cold, hard logic. The first rule of his independence audit is simple and absolute. Neutralize all immediate hazards. This is not about sorting, and it is not about memories. It is a safety sweep. His eyes, now trained to see threats instead of clutter, immediately lock onto the coiled electrical cord that nearly took him down. He doesn't just move it. He follows it to its source, a long dead shop vacuum, and decisively unplugs it, coiling the cord for disposal. This single, deliberate action feels different from all the failed attempts before it. It isn't emotional. It is an act of environmental control. One by one, he addresses the other liabilities, the treacherous stack of old newspapers that could slide, the slick spot from a leaking can of lubricant, the precariously balanced paint cans. Each neutralized hazard is a small but definitive victory. He is no longer a man drowning in the past. He is a safety inspector securing a critical zone, reclaiming his territory, 1 square foot of clear, safe floor at a time. This isn't cleaning, it's fortification. With a safe path cleared, he turns his focus to the workbench. This brings him to rule number 2 of the audit. Eliminate the redundancy tax. He opens a drawer and finds the evidence of years of inefficiency. 4 Phillips head screwdrivers, 3 tape measures, and a tangled mess of duplicate wrenches. He recalls the frustrating moments he bought each one, a tax paid in both time and money for an inability to find the original. The old shame is replaced by an engineer's clarity. The system itself was flawed, designed to perpetuate its own chaos. The directive is ruthlessly simple. Keep the best, liberate the rest. He lays out the 4 screwdrivers. One has a magnetic tip and a perfect grip. The others are just ghosts of past frustrations. Placing the 3 inferior tools into a box marked Donate isn't an act of loss. It is an act of optimization. It's a vote for a future where a simple task doesn't begin with a half-hour search. It is a profound, quiet reclamation of his own competence, restoring the promise that when he reaches for a tool, the right one will be there, ready and waiting. The progress is real, yet the sight of the towering boxes from the move 15 years ago still threatens to trigger the old paralysis. The sheer volume feels infinite. This is where he deploys rule number 3, a crucial tool against overwhelm. Execute a 1-hour reset. The principle is to starve the beast of anxiety with a small, defined victory. He must choose one category, and only one, and dedicate exactly 60 minutes to it. No more, no less. He chooses the old paint cans, a category heavy with deferred decisions. For 1 hour, his only job is to gather every single one from their scattered hiding places and bring them to a single designated spot. He isn't deciding what to keep or what to discard. He is simply taking inventory. When the timer on his phone buzzes, he stops. The garage is not clean, but it is transformed. The problem of the paint has been consolidated. It is no longer 100 scattered questions, but one single contained issue. He has taken an infinite, undefined threat and given it a clear boundary. He has proven that the mountain can be moved, one 60-minute rock at a time. The initial victories, born from cold logic, gave him a foothold, but now he stands at the base of a different kind of mountain. He reaches for a cardboard box, its flaps soft with age, the marker on the side faded but clear. Helen's Garden. As he opens it, the sterile air of the garage is replaced by the faint, earthy scent of dried soil and potpourri. Inside are her gardening gloves, the fingers stiff and curled, as if still holding a trowel. There's a stack of seed catalogs from a spring that never came for her, and a small hand-painted sign that reads, "She who plants a garden plants happiness." The clean logic of the independence audit evaporates. These items are not hazards. They are not duplicates. Their only function is to hold memory, and the thought of putting them in a donation box feels like a physical betrayal. The old paralysis returns, heavier this time, because it isn't born of chaos, but of love. He is no longer sorting objects. He is sorting through the tangible remains of a shared life, and the fear of regret whispers that letting go of the thing is the same as letting go of the person. He almost closes the lid, ready to retreat, to designate this corner a sacred, untouchable space. But the momentum of his recent progress holds him there for a crucial second longer. The new, stronger part of him, the engineer of his own future, forces a difficult question to the surface. It is the core of rule number 4, the future self test. He looks at the gloves, the catalogs, the sign, and asks, will keeping these items in this box, in this garage, better serve the man I need to be for the next decade? Or are they only serving the man I was? The question hangs in the silence, its clinical precision cutting through the fog of grief. He knows his wife Helen, a woman of profound pragmatism and life, would be appalled to see her memory become an anchor weighing him down in a dusty, unsafe space. Her legacy was not meant to be a shrine that prevented him from living. He realizes with a sudden, painful clarity that honoring her is not about guarding these relics. It's about continuing to live with the purpose and safety she would have wanted for him. He decides to keep the small sign, a single potent symbol, and to let the rest go, understanding that the space he's truly clearing is not in the garage, but in his own heart, making room for a new season of life to begin. It is the space he needs to hear his own thoughts again, to consider the day ahead not as a series of obstacles, but as a blank page. When his son and daughter arrive for their weekly visit, the familiar script is irrevocably broken. They walk into the garage, and the usual flicker of concern in their eyes is replaced by a look of genuine, unadulterated respect. There are no gentle, probing questions about whether he needs a hand. His son picks up a newly sharpened chisel from the workbench, feeling its balanced weight. "This place looks incredible, Dad," he says, his voice holding not surprise, but a deep, resonant admiration. "It looks like your workshop again." In that simple acknowledgement, Richard feels the tectonic plates of his family dynamic shift. He is no longer the project, the man to be managed or worried over. He has reasserted his role as the patriarch, the engineer, the capable man in charge of his own domain. The garage is no longer a silent testament to his decline. It is a powerful declaration of his enduring competence. He has won the quiet war, not by fighting his children, but by preemptively solving the problem himself, securing their respect instead of inviting their intervention. The following week, the scent of freshly cut pine fills the air. Richard is at the workbench, his hands steady as he guides a piece of wood across a small tabletop saw. He is building a simple birdhouse, a project he had considered and abandoned 100 times over the past few years. The motions are familiar, a muscle memory of purpose stored deep in his hands. This small act is the true dividend of his investment. It's not about the birdhouse itself. It is about the reclamation of process. It's the simple, unburdened joy of measuring twice and cutting once, of seeing a plan take shape, of engaging with the physical world not as an adversary, but as a creative partner. Each pass of sandpaper, smoothing the rough edges, feels like a metaphor for what he has done in his own life. He is no longer just a curator of finished stories. He is the author of a new one, its narrative written in clean lines of sawdust and the quiet satisfaction of making something new. Ultimately, the garage was never the real issue. It was a metaphor for a life that had become defined by its past. For years, every object was a ghost, every box a closed chapter, every blocked path a silent admission that the best days were behind him. The process of clearing that space was a powerful act of defiance against that narrative. It was a declaration that the future is not something that happens to you, but something you actively build. This is the truth that echoes in the newly cleared space. You are not the curator of a museum dedicated to who you once were. You are the architect of your future, and the first task of any great architect is to clear the land. You must tear down the structures that no longer serve you to make room for the foundation of what is to come. It's an act of profound self-respect to decide that your future deserves more space than your past. He stands at the threshold of the garage as the sun begins to set, the long shadows stretching across the open floor. The birdhouse sits on the workbench, its small form a symbol of the new beginning. He isn't thinking about the past, about the woman he loved, or the man he was. The grief and the love remain, but they are no longer entangled with the weight of physical objects. They have been integrated, transformed into a source of quiet strength. His gaze is fixed on the empty space next to the birdhouse, already envisioning the next project. There is a sense of calm, of limitless potential, of a story that is not ending, but just getting started. He has not erased his history. He has simply made room for his future. And in that open space, there is not a feeling of loss, but the quiet, unshakable hum of hope.